Hello again, I am Jim Bob and welcome back to Lone Oak Farm. We are about to make our way over to the auction at Salem. There has been a few developments on the farm that I need to kind of fill you in on, and we'll do that when we get back. You may have just got a glimpse of something in the background there. I had some deliveries of equipment late last night. The headers from Rostelmash finally arrived, and then early this morning our mowers arrived. And we got those sort of, in and up and running. And because we knew we were going to have a busy day, we actually started mowing field 44, very early in the morning. And that field has been baled and wrapped. And that's going to give us some extra cash. You can see, actually, looking at the cash in the top right corner, I've currently got $282,000 on me. That is the absolute limit that I'm prepared to spend on getting field 50 if we are successful at auction. The field has an estimated value of around $230,000. I'm prepared to pay another $50,000 in total on top and no more. So I've taken out the money that I need. I've got a little bit of my available loan left. Not much. I still have other equipment that I need to get, but yeah, we are really pushing our finances to complete breaking point at the moment, and that's why I did a whole load of bales, because it's a way for us to recoup some of the extra money that we're expending in quick succession. Those bales will be shredded before they're sold. They won't be sold as bales, they'll be sold as loose material, so we get a nice good payoff from those, and we'll have that money in a couple of days so that we can then afford to bring in our cows, which is the important thing. So we'll kind of go through that in a little bit more detail when I get back, but as for now, I'm off to Salem, which is 13 miles down the road. The auction starts in 6 minutes, but our lot isn't scheduled to come up till around about past. So I've got a little bit of time, got to get a wriggle on, and I'll see you when I get back. And we were successful. We have won the auction. We had to pay a little bit more than we wanted to, but we actually have ownership of the field now, which is fantastic. So, again, expensive. The list price of the field before the auction was around $229,000 and a few extra dollars. So that was kind of like the listed value of the field. But of course, it's an auction, and you're going to have competing bids. And we did get into a little bit of a bidding war, and we ended up having to pay an extra sort of $36,500 more than the list price of the field. So we now own field 50, but it's cost us $265,750. So quite pricey, but I think come next summer, when we get to pull those soybean off the field, it will be worth it. So we have immediately got to kind of spring into action. We have one tractor that's going to be powerful enough to do what we need to do, and that's going to be the Magnum. So we need to go and rip that field up with our case plow, the Eco-Till, and then on top of that we then need to cultivate the field before we can start seeding it, which again is going to be done by the Magnum. Now, the fact that we have the 6-meter cultivator means that our Puma can help out, but we may well be doing other jobs as well. So we'll see how things go. But I did say I kind of run through all the other stuff that happened. So as you can see, this is the aftermath of a very early morning mowing session. I realised that if we went for the auction, we might not have funds on hand to be able to bring the cows in on day 3. So this is why we ended up mowing and baling this field, partly because we needed to do something to get it out the way, to try and encourage that to get back to stage 3 growth and get 2 more cuts off that field before the end of the year. But also, I wanted to have an extra source of income that would be able to replace the money from the field, so that when it came to buying the cows, which we would be doing probably before we sell our soybean, we would actually have the money to be able to bring in the cows. Plus, we also need to still buy that mixer as well. So over here, the rear mowers that we ordered were delivered first thing this morning, and we got those up and running. And when I say first thing this morning, I mean like 3 o'clock this morning. I requested them to be shipped urgently so that we could try and get that mowing done this morning. And they turned up around about 3 o'clock. They're all hooked up to the front mower there, as you can see. And then the other equipment that turned up sort of late last night, so we kind of bookended a late night with a very early start. We've had very little sleep, and it's going to be another busy day today. But the other thing that arrived late last night were my 2 new headers from Rostelmash for my forage harvester. So we have the 4-up 370 header, so that we can pick grass off the fields. This is going to be really, really useful, considering we're going to be doing grass for silage. And then we also have the mower attacher as well, because there may come a point where it's easier to just mow directly, depending on the field that we're working. And also, this gives us the option of maybe, if we have too much crop of one particular kind that we can't store stuff, rather than sort of selling at a poor price, we could chaff it and turn it into silage and potentially make some really good money off it. So it wasn't that expensive a purchase, and I figured, why not? I think the 2 headers combined cost me around about 30,000, maybe not even that. And obviously we already had the corn header, which is what it came with last year. Let's jump into the Magnum. Actually, let's get this door open first, so we can drive out the other side. We need to head on over to field 50 and start ripping that field up. And I don't think we've got enough fuel. We're probably going to have to do a little top up on our fuel levels as well. And you can see here, this actually is where I decided to park the new horse cultivator, in our kind of plough/cultivator alcove over here. So I just moved this out of the way. There we go. We may need that, so I'll leave it out, because we may be using our Puma with that to help out with the cultivating once we've got the field ploughed. Depends what other jobs we need to get done today. There we go. Whoops. I've clipped something. What have I clipped? The support. The pole there holding up the shed. That's not a good thing to hit. Bring the whole shed collapsing down on my equipment. Let's just top up our tractor's fuel engine, or fuel tank, fuel engine. What am I saying? And let's take a look at our other jobs as well. So financially, we're now at 1.375 million. We've got just over a million, 1.25 million. Sorry, 125,000 left of our maxed out 1.5 million loan. That's way more than I ever intended to go to, but it's a temporary stopgap. That will change. If we head back to our fields, we can look at the growth and look at our soil composition. I don't think this has grown enough to actually give us a need to fertilise it again yet. But what about our corn? See, our corn is still in its early planted stage. It's still not ready for fertilising. So that's a bit frustrating. I was hoping we could maybe start... I suppose there's nothing to stop us, but we could start spraying our cornfields today as well. But let's go and concentrate first of all on getting field 50 turned over. So let's make our way over there. It is a very, very big field. Certainly the largest field available to us. And once we get some soybean planted on that, next year's, or next summer when we come to sell, we're going to have a bumper crop of soybean. Absolutely massive, because we've already got 3 fields planted already, don't forget. We've already got, press the wrong button there. There we go, that's what I wanted to do. We've already got fields 49, 53 and 54 planted with soybean. Now we're going to add field 50 into that mix as well. It means we're going to end up with a huge amount of soybean. It's going to be worth a small fortune next year. So we could be in for a very, very good price indeed. Now I do need to be careful trying to maximise just how much I can get off this field in terms of cultivated crop, because we're going to damage it as we drive on it. So if I line up about here, drop the plough, there we go, we've got full coverage. That's the important thing. So we are going to have to rely on worker again so that we can actually make sure we don't lose that fertilizer bonus. If I nip over here, go down to soil, you can't really see it because it's a very small patch, but there is a little bit there on the very edge that isn't giving us the blue fertilizer state because we've damaged the crop and destroyed it before we've ploughed it. So it's going to be tricky when it comes to doing the islands. That's where we are going to have little clumps suddenly pop up in the field where we're going to lose a stage of fertilizer, or we're not going to get the fertilizer bonus, but I can live with that. That's fair enough. So our Magnum's going to be basically ploughing and cultivating all day. I don't think we're even going to have time to seed today, so we might have to do that tomorrow. Now, we do still have a couple of days left. As you can see, we're on day 6, and then we have days 1 and 2 available in summer as part of our planting window for soybean. But it does mean that if we don't start planting this till tomorrow, then there's a very real chance that it's not going to be ready until the last day or two of autumn, which potentially could cause us some serious problems in terms of if the weather's bad, we might not be able to get it dry enough to harvest, or we might have to harvest at silly hours in the morning, or or really late in the evening, depending on crop moisture and ground moisture. So this could potentially be a little problematic. The safe bet would have been to just let this crop grow, fertilize what we had, and then harvest it, and then next year we could have just sold, planted something on it instead. Maybe soybean, maybe something else, and got through it that way. But this is a huge field, it's a very expensive field, and we really wanted to maximize the money we could get off this field, and I think the best way for that would be to put soybean in rather than keeping it as barley, when we already have 2 big barley fields, and there's only so much money we can make off barley before we crash the market. This is clumsy. There we go. So I'm going to need to do the edge of this field here. And this is the problem we're going to have, is we're going to have these patches where we're damaging parts of the field, the existing crop. I mean, it's not the end of the world. As long as the main bulk of the field gives us that plus, extra stage of fertilizer, then I'm happy. But it would be nice if we could avoid doing that. Now, this isn't actually going to be an issue in Farming Sim 19. I'm assuming that cultivating or ploughing a field which has an existing crop will give you a stage of fertilizer. But we've seen that, crop damage, unless it's something like a combine, I don't think you damage the crop when you drive on it. I have seen a combine damaging a field from the Gamescom footage, but I've also seen tractors driving through fields and not damaging it, just bouncing back up again. So in a job like this, I think it's safe to say that we would not damage the field driving on it, and we could do this kind of work manually and not rely on workers, to avoid damaging the field and losing part of that bonus that we're getting. So I really hope that's going to be the case with 19, just so that I can actually get a bit more involved. And also means on a field like this, when we have those islands that we're going to have to work with, those sort of little formations, then it does mean that potentially, we're going to end up doing a border all the way around those manually, and all of that stuff being, ineligible for the bonus. Be interesting to see, I think, exactly how that shakes out. But yeah, it's 11 o'clock. We still have other work to do. Time is ticking on, and there's not a lot we can do. So until this is done, so let's see if we can find something else to do. Now, I was looking at potentially doing some spraying. I could look at maybe 44. Has that grown enough for another stage? Oh no, 44 is my grass field. I could roll field 44. Get that done. I don't think these fields have grown another stage yet. Might have to scan one of those and see what stage they're at, and see if they need spraying as well. Actually, the only field that needs doing here is 33, 32, 45, 49, 51, and then these two down here. And you can see that these ones haven't grown. I'd rather get a stage of growth on there before I spray them. I just think it looks a little bit more realistic to spray crops rather than just spraying a field. So we'll hold off on those ones until we actually get the first stage of growth. But the only one that might be a bit different is field 48, because that hasn't got any fertilizer state on it at the moment. So we'll probably spray that today, get that to stage 1. I don't think I'm going to do any mowing over here, although I could. No, I can't, because there's a trailer I need to, I need to get that ordered. That's got to be delivered, and it's expensive as well. So I'd rather wait until we can do something a bit more with slightly more secure footing on our finances before I start doing that. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with that grass field yet. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to attack that grass field while we are spraying other fields as well. Right, I'm going to jump on a little bit further, make some more progress with this ploughing, because this is going to take quite a long time. Even with this 8.5 metre plough, it's going to take some time to get this field done. And then once it is done, we need to get it cultivated, and once it's cultivated, or at least we started the cultivating, we can potentially start the seeding as well. So I'll make some more progress on this, and I'll catch up with you in a little while. So to help us out a little bit, because we are making some progress, but it's pretty slow progress, we are going to go and press the Puma into cultivating service as well. Make our way through the yard. There we go. And what I've done is I've cut a strip, sort of blocked off a section of the field that's being ploughed, and we're going to cultivate that section as it's being ploughed. With this, it'll have a slightly faster running speed, but a narrower working width. So any overlap issues should hopefully, not be an issue, going forward. And then once that part of the field is done, we can then start ploughing the next section and trying to get it cultivated as we're ploughing it, and hopefully that'll just speed things up a little bit. As we crest the hill, go past the lone oak. So there you can see that kind of strip that I've cut there goes up to the edge of one of the two islands, and we're going to do everything to the right of that strip. There you can see the Magnum on its way back again. So I need to make sure I don't go too far across. That should do it, I think. Right. Let's try and keep a straight line down here. So I'm going to follow the furrow that's or the crest of the furrow there, that's pointing at the centre of my nose there. If I can keep it in a nice straight line here, not get too close to the edge there. I'm not going to risk cutting up something that I shouldn't be cutting up. And actually we're running about the same speed, 8-9 miles an hour. I have noticed this cultivator has a tendency to bounce a little bit. You can see it kind of bounces up and down a bit. Not sure why it's doing that. Might just be a height issue. It's not properly set for a a 3-point harness. Maybe the height is a little bit wrong, and it would work better with a different tractor. I mean, it still works. It just looks a bit odd, bouncing up and down a little bit like that. And maybe that's a realistic animation. I honestly couldn't say, because I don't do this for a living. So I've never seen a cultivator bounce up and down like that, but then, to be honest, I haven't really seen that many cultivators in real life, so I honestly don't know if that's a genuine animation or just a weird little kind of, just a weird little thing that it shouldn't really be doing. But we're keeping a pretty good straight line here, which is good to see. We've got that nice kind of, we've judged it almost perfectly for the visual effect. I do like that visual effect of the soil kind of looking like it's slightly raised up, and just having that furrow on the very edge there. Just drifting a slight bit, which is correct. There we go. So I think visually we've actually got a very nice kind of look there, and I'm toying with the idea of maybe trying to keep that look in the future. I don't know. I had toyed with the idea of actually planting with boundaries next year rather than going all the way up to the edge of the field. I don't know if I'm going to try that or not. We'll see. Probably won't, if I'm honest, but there we go. We've made it to the end, so let's spin around Try and get lined up. And we'll let the worker take over from now that we are all lined up properly. Again, you can see it's still bouncing a little bit for the worker. We're actually running at 10 miles an hour now, but we're kind of flitting between 10, 9 and 8. Our our plough runs at a smooth 9 miles an hour until it gets to the very lip of the hill just over there at the edge of the field, where it slows down to about 5 or 6 miles an hour as it gets to the very steepest part of that little crest. It looks a bit shallower. It looks like we've done the steepest bit, so we should be okay going forward. But as I say, we've got a wider working width on the Magnum than we have on the Puma. There shouldn't be any sort of issues where they get in each other's way going forward, so we can leave them like this, and once that's kind of finished ploughing out that block, we can move over and start working on this section of the field and try and turn this thing over as quickly as possible, get it ready for planting. And while they're doing this, I'm going to head back to the farm. So if I just jump out now, there we go. I'm going to head back to the farm, and I am going to jump in my sprayer and start spraying the first of my cornfields. No, wait, 48. Yeah, 48 is a cornfield, so we'll spray field 48. We've got quite a lot of liquid fertilizer in this already, but I'm going to give it a top up just in case we end up going onto another field or it's not quite enough. It is quite a big field, field 48, so there we go, fully topped up. Let's make our way over and start spraying that. It should still have that default seedbed texture. Like I say, if for whatever reason our corn hasn't started growing yet, it should start growing tomorrow. It's just a little bit of a concern that, we still haven't seen any growth on the corn or soybean yet. Ground temperatures are high enough. It's 12 degrees, so I'm expecting growth tomorrow. If we don't get any growth tomorrow, I'm going to panic, because we're going to find ourselves in a position where a lot of fields are going to not be ready until the end of autumn, and then we're going to have a real race on our hands to get them all harvested before the crops start dying off. So yeah, it could be a little bit of a problem. Actually, if I take a look, does that field, does 43 need doing, or is 43 done? No, 43 is done, so it's 32 and 33, and then 48. Obviously 44 we can roll, although I'd have to second the 1455 for that, because Puma's busy, and I'd rather not do it with the 1455. There are issues uncoupling the roller from the 1455, whereas from the Puma it will actually decouple properly and stand separately. It drops to the floor and drags on the back of the 1455, and sometimes you can end up pulling it along with you even though you're actually disconnected from it. So let's try and avoid that situation entirely if we can. Again, with the soybean fields, because they're now at a good stage. Oh, I could do this one actually as well. I could do field 49, because that's only at stage 1. I'm trying to balance the fields out a bit so that we at least have some growth before we put the final stage of fertilizer on. I just think it looks a bit better. There's nothing to stop us from doing it, game mechanic wise. It's more of a personal preference, I think. But as this field currently has a 0 fertilizer state, it's kind of important that we get a stage in now while we have the opportunity, so that we can get the field to stage 1 before it starts growing. Otherwise we're going to end up having to make multiple trips over here through the grain as it's growing, through the corn. I'd rather not do that. We're going to be busy towards the later growth stages with harvesting, hopefully on other fields, or wheat and barley for example. Which again, I must admit, I'm a little disappointed isn't further along. Obviously that little lower period of temperature at the start of spring is completely different to what it was with the Italy Geo that we were using in year 1, where we had perfect growth temperatures on the very first day. So those crops were ready to go midsummer. We're not going to have that this year. It's going to be late summer at the earliest, I think, before any of our crops come in, and then sort of, you know, into autumn. Autumn's going to be very busy this year, a lot busier than last year, simply because of the delayed growth of some of our fields, and also just because we've got more fields to do, more acreage to do. So we could potentially find ourselves slightly, you know, as I say, slightly overworked with too many fields to do and not enough time to do them. If that's the case, then we will have to contract out and get a second harvester leased in, and get a worker in to help us with the harvest. That's going to be very expensive if we do that, and I'd rather avoid doing that at all if possible. And if it is a problem and we're looking to potentially get an extra couple of fields again next year, then we may need to look at, you know, buying a second harvester next year. If that's the case, I'd rather not do that again if possible. We may kind of just realise that we're at the optimum number of fields and leave it at that. I don't know. We'll see how things shake out with our harvesting this year. We've just missed the very edge of that field. There we go. So while our workers are busy on field 50, I'm going to carry on spraying over here, and I'll see you as I've made a bit more progress. Making some more progress on this field. I've already done kind of all that section over there, so we've now just got this kind of up and down section here that needs to be done. Let's just check in on our workers. Worker in the Magnum is getting close to being done on his section of the field, which is kind of good, and you can see there's plenty of space between him and the worker in the Puma, which is worker I, so they're not getting in each other's way. That's good to see. So as soon as we've done this, I think we're going to be ready to move the Puma over to another section of field 50 and start ploughing up that there. We'll kind of do the same again. We've got the border already on one side of the field. We'll try and get a section next to the next set of island, the next island there, the one on the left of the two. And then start working to the left of that and get the cultivator going behind us on that section, and then when that's done, then we can start doing the fiddly bit in the middle and try and get all that done as neatly as possible. I think that might be the way to go forward. I'm just getting a little bit offline here. There we go. Just drifting in a little bit. This thing does not bounce around a lot. There we go. Spin around. There's that strip of slurry that was put down erroneously. Hopefully that, as I say, won't throw out the pH balance of that particular strip of corn. We should be okay, but that's a little section there that we might need to chaff rather than harvest, just to get rid of it if it's particularly bad. We'll check that as we get closer, as it starts growing in. I'll make a decision then. There we go. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a worker to just finish this off while I nip over and do a close-up progress check of the Magnum. We'll see exactly where he's up to and see where we need to take over from. So the worker just has this strip here to go. I don't think we can cover this without needing to go through it. Yeah, we're going to need to go through it, which is a bit of a shame. So I was wondering if I could maybe do that strip manually. So we'll have to ride along with the worker while he does this strip here. But you can see there is the larger of the two islands, the one that's kind of a little bit more to the left. What we're going to do is we're going to try and get as close to that on one side of it, and then work all the left-hand side of the field and do essentially what we've been doing here. So ploughing with the cultivator chasing, and then once that's done, then we can start doing all the fiddly stuff around the islands themselves, try and get as little sort of damage to the crop done before we can cultivate and plough it in, to make sure we do get that bonus. I might actually be able to see a little visual indicator around here. I've tried to be a little bit careful where I can, but you can see we've got a little blue bit that pops up just there. and then red on either side of it, and that's kind of an indicator, I think, of where we kind of damaged the crop. We might be okay, I'm not too sure, but yeah, it's not ideal. So we have done a little bit of damage, and as soon as this is done, as I say, I'm going to move them over and start working that left-hand section of this field. There we go, that section is done. So we've got plenty of space for the cultivator to carry on working in. Now we need to try and line ourselves up, and I think it's probably going to be easier to do that at the other end of the field, where we're closer to that island and we can actually visually see it. So we'll whiz back to the other end of the field. You just see those trees just on the end there starting to spawn in, but now we can see the island as well. We've got the hill as well, which doesn't help. It's kind of recessed in that little gully in the middle of the field. It makes it very hard to see from that end, because you have the hill that crests up and then it drops down, and there's the islands, and then it kind of crests back up again. At this side we can definitely see where we are and get pretty close on the first pass, and then we might have to kind of double back a little bit. We'll probably have a section or two where we get, you know, a little bit too close and the worker stops. We'll see. So I can kind of line things up a little bit as well, following the line of crop. So I think if I go, try to get my wheels aligned, if I go about here, this should be about perfect. And we should be able to carry on straight through here without any real issue. And once this happens, then we can turn around, go to the left and work all of that strip there, and the cultivator can quite happily follow that along. Yeah, look at that, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect. And this is where it's going to get a bit trickier. So I think what I'll do is I'll probably end up doing, you know, that, running along the island itself to do as little damage to that surrounding crop. It's the bits in between the islands, though, that's going to be the trickiest bit, I think. Trying to get those done. I mean, we could possibly do it if we ran straight between the two. There's going to be some damage done to this field. That's unavoidable. But if we can minimise the amount of damage that we do, it just leaves us in that, you know, stronger position. And there you can see, just in the distance, there is our Puma working away. So as soon as we get to the end here, I'm going to make sure that he actually turns around, goes to the left, and we've got another section that we can start ploughing. I think we may even get to a point where we can grab our new horse joker and start using that on this field as well, because I think it's going to take a long time for our Puma to catch up. But it is 2:30 in the afternoon. This is really taking a long time to do. I don't think we're going to have time to seed this today, so we may have to seed this tomorrow. That or work very late into the night, which, considering we had a late delivery last night and a very early start this morning, could be, you know, exhausting. But, you know, that's the way it is on a farm. Needs must. You work as long as you need to get what you need to get done. And if that means we have to work into the late hours of the night, then so be it. The spraying is done, and it's just as well we did top the tank up before we left, because look, we have just, well, depending on which readout you look at, in the bottom right corner 136, in the actual readout inside the cab 137 litres of fertiliser left. That's it. That's all we've got left. So if we had gone out with what we had left in the tank, it wouldn't have been enough, and we'd had to come back and do a top up just to get that last little bit, those last few hundred litres. So I think we definitely made the right decision. Trying to think what else I can get done this afternoon, and beyond spraying some more fields, which I don't know if I really want to do or not. There isn't really much else we can do. I don't think we could spray field 49. That is going to need doing twice more. So I think I will spray that field. But as for the other ones, we're going to leave them as they are, I think. Just waiting for this stuff to start growing a little bit more, and we have got some rain coming in, as you can see. Rain is on the way. Now luckily we got all of our grass work done first thing this morning, so that's not going to be an issue, and the last little bits of grass that are left on the field, well, they're rotting away slowly anyway, and the rain will help speed that up. And they'll rot away a little bit quicker. Our bales are protected because they're wrapped, so we don't have to worry about those. We are going to pay a trip over to Manning's, and I'm going to sit down with Sam, and we're going to try and source a good feed mixer to turn up in a couple of days' time. We'll do that once we get a worker up and spraying on the field. We'll go and speak to Sam, and there's that other trailer that I need to order as well. That's quite pricey, so that'll probably go through on a delayed order. Well, I suppose I could probably do it rushing it. I have got, financially, I have got a little bit of wiggle room, as you can see. 125 grand left is what we have, so it's not a huge amount of money, but it is a little bit. Oh, I forgot to mention, I did actually sell a couple of bits of equipment as well as taking those deliveries. I sold the Pottinger, rear mower that we had to a local farmer. I got all of about 5,000 for that. Really not much at all. But I mean, they're only 9 grand brand new. Ours has seen a fair bit of use, so 5 grand I think was a fair price. And we also got rid of the small header for the combine, because initially I thought that we might possibly look into a couple of small fields like maybe 36 and 31. I thought maybe we could look at getting into some crop on those fields, and they've got narrow gates to get in and out of, but looking at it, I think it's highly unlikely we're going to buy any fields with tight, narrow access like that. We're just not going to need that header, and the longer we have it, it just burns up our expenses, and it just devalues further and further every time, every day. So just bit the bullet and got rid of that, and I think we got around about 8-9 grand for that as well. So not a huge amount of money, but a little bit. So the small header has gone, and so has that rear mower. Obviously we don't need that anymore now that we have the butterfly mower at the back. So that is kind of a final update on our equipment roster. But there is a big trailer that I want to bring in specifically for our forage harvester. I think that's going to make things a little bit easier, and in terms of transferring from one to another. Last year we used Massey Ferguson sort of sugarcane trailers. We're going to use something a little different this time around, but it's going to be the same kind of principle. We're going to unload into a nearby truck, and then that's going to be carting everything over to the BGA, so we don't have to take the forage harvester off the field and on the roads. And yeah, it's just, that's going to be cumbersome, it's going to be slower, and it's going to be a lot harder to actually get the tips done the way I want them as well. So we'll be investing quite a lot of money in a new trailer. It's going to cost me around about 90 grand. Not cheap. It's going to eat up the last little bit of my available kind of emergency loan money. And again, this is why I wanted those bales. Now we are making money with the orchard. As you can see, we came back from the auction this morning with around 20 grand or so. We're now up to 37, despite the fact that we've paid for a couple of rounds of fertilizer, well, a round and a bit of fertilizer, and also we're paying wages for our workers. So the orchard is doing what it's supposed to do, and that's generating good amounts of money, but it's got a lot of money that needs to be generated to get that debt down. But it will mean that even if I do get that trailer tomorrow, it will still give me enough, over the next couple of days of growth from the trees. It'll give me enough money to be able to buy in a mixer. And we're looking at around a 40,000 sort of fee for the mixer. We're going to be getting one from Silo King. It is the pull behind mixer with a 16,000 litre capacity. That's pretty much all we're going to need, and I do need that before the cows turn up, because I need that to shred the bales. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be setting up the bales at the BGA, and I'm going to have a conveyor belt in place, and I'm going to be tipping onto the onto the ground, and then feeding from that straight into the BGA itself, into the shredder. So that will give us a nice consistent tip and a nice constant tip, and that way we should make a pretty nice tidy sum of money from our silage. I'm not sure what the loose silage price is going to be. When I get to the end and kind of turn around, let's just hire a worker for a second. Let's take a look at the market price for silage, because I haven't looked at the loose silage price yet so far. That's actually not too bad. 455, 451. Those prices are pretty decent. You know, I've been on maps where it's been much lower than that, so that's actually not too bad at all for silage prices. We could make some really good money doing our silage loose. Let's just take over from the worker again. Save a couple of dollars in wages. So you know, that is basically kind of the plan for those bales, is to shred them at the BGA and then tip them onto a conveyor, or tip them onto the ground, build up a pile and have a conveyor, you know, pumping that pile straight in, and we can just keep adding and tipping and adding and tipping into that pile. That's kind of what we're aiming for. Now in practice it may not go as smoothly as I'm describing. We will just have to wait and see how it all kind of shakes out, but that'll also give us some extra digestate for next year as well, and maybe later for this year, you know, in preparation, so we could perhaps put some digestate down on our fields that are finished with, you know, a harvest before we plant OSR, and that way we can do a slurry spread, you know, on some of the fields, then do an OSR after that. And for the other fields we can just do OSR and a slurry spread after that, you know, next year, once we've got the rest of our silage processed throughout the rest of the year. I'm going to be keeping some of the bales that we have at the farm as well. I'm actually going to keep quite a big number of those, because we already have a large chunk of loose silage in our bunker at the farm. So we'll be kind of tipping a big chunk, if not all of that, and then, you know, some of those silage bales we can just use when we make our mix to go along with the hay bales that we've got and the straw bales that we've got as well. You know, for our cows, we'll be able to get the TMR up and running nice and quickly. It's going to be an interesting kind of sort of balancing act and juggling act. You know, it'll be a combination of some bales being shredded, some bales being kept and then used for food, some loose silage already being made at the BGA just to give me somewhere. I've done that deliberately because you can't tip silage, you know, into an empty bunker. You know, if you've got silage and you want to tip it from a trailer into an empty bunker, you can't do that unless there's silage already in the bunker. It's one of those weird little foibles, but to get around that, I've got a very small amount of silage already being made and processed at the BGA. It's just like the last little bit of grass from our current harvest is already fermenting and turning into loose silage, and that way I can transfer silage from our farm over to the BGA and have that supply ready to go, so that when we start shredding the bales, you know, we've already got a supply that's being fed through, and the bales that we're shredding can then be added into that. That's kind of what we're going for. That way we don't break the tip stream, and we keep a nice continuous, you know, tip going all the way through. So I'm looking forward to getting that up and running, but I will see you once I have finished spraying this field. Okay, we have finished spraying off field 49, the big soybean field. That's now kind of sprayed, so that's at stage 2, so that still needs one more application as well. I think most of our fields now are going to be at stage 2, just need that one final stage, the ones that aren't already done. And the only field that should, I think, be at stage 1, apart from the field that we're just about to to plant later this evening, is field 49. Sorry, field 48, the cornfield that we sprayed earlier. So we're in a pretty good position as far as our fertilizing goes. And time is ticking on. It's 5:30, and we need to make our way over to Manning's before they close at 6, so I can order those pieces of equipment from Sam. It's been a while since that's happened, when my pad has died on me for no reason at all. You know, the battery's fine, look. Very, very strange. I just wanted to make sure that we were... There we are, a bit too far forward. Let's back her up a little bit more. Yeah, a bit odd there. My pad just disconnected itself and turned itself off for no reason whatsoever. Let's jump in the Jeep. Let's make our way... I say the Jeep, the pickup. or for my Aussie viewers, there are a few of you out there, the ute. Gotta call it a ute. It's kind of weird, you know, how you associate certain vehicles with certain names. I used to call them utes when I was a kid, before I started calling them pickups, because as a kid I watched Neighbours, and that was back when Joe Mangle was a character, and he was always going on about his ute. And so that's what I started calling them, because that was about the only time we really saw them, was on TV, and it was always Joe Mangle referring to them as a ute. So yeah, we're driving our ute over over to the store, to Manning, so we can go and order those vehicles there, or those those trailers that we need. There's that big trailer we're going to need for our forage. What was the other piece of equipment I need? Oh yes, the mixer, the mixer trailer that we need as well. So a couple of little bits we're going to need to get. We're probably going to need to put in an order for some conveyors as well. We can get those probably on the day. They're not going to be too expensive. You can see our orchard has ticked over a bit more, and despite those increased costs of fertilizing and the workers, we're still making profit. We're up to $42,000 for the day, so we've made about 20 grand on top of what we've spent today, not counting the field that we purchased. So it's been a pretty good little run with our orchard so far today. We're going to have to make sure that's topped up again tomorrow, so that it keeps producing that money for us. We are going to miss that money when winter hits and it's too cold to grow the fruit. And I will see you once we're done at Manning's. I'll show you what it is that we've ordered. So there we go, trailer has been ordered and paid for. That's going to be express shipped overnight, so we should have that tomorrow morning, hopefully, fingers crossed. Or at least, fairly early tomorrow. It might be sort of mid-morning, but we should get that nice and soon. So, let's just have a quick recap of exactly where we are. We're getting a lot of lag, partly from the computer, but mainly, I think, from those bales all stacked up just there. Let's pull up our details here, so you can see, with the expense, $92,000 spent on that trailer, we're now at a whopping $1.425 million of debt. That is an awful lot. That is going to have to come down fast, because the interest alone is going to be pushing $5 grand a day. That's not great. In terms of field states, you can see here our workers have been busy hacking away on this stuff. In fact, actually, is he where he shouldn't be? I think he is. He might be going over what I've already cultivated, and that's a problem if that's the case. Not sure how he's down there. Yeah, he is. It's very strange. Not really sure what's happened at all there. We'll check into that. You can see our cultivators working away on this section as well, which is kind of cool. We need to put a second stage of fertilizer on 48 and 51. We have a second stage that needs to go on here. Also, our corn up here is going to need a second stage of fertilizer. A third stage needs to go on this field here, and this is our grass field. We need to weed that, and that might happen tonight, just because I get the feeling the grass is going to grow in the morning. I'm just going to jump into the Magnum here for a second. Yeah, he is ploughing. How has he started doing that? Because I got him ploughing over here. How has he managed, unless he's kind of shuttled through between the two islands? I think he might have done that, actually. And then completely bypassed the second strip. He was working on this section here, and he seems to have just missed out everything in the middle. He has, look, he's shuttled between... Clever boy. Clever and also maddeningly frustrating. He seems to have shuttled between the two islands, look. Well, I never. That's how he's done it. Okay. Alright, we'll carry on ploughing this bit here. Again, we're going to have to rip up this little bit on the edge. Get straightened up. There we go. Oh, no. I'm going to have to do this bit manually because he's not going to accept it until I get past this section. There we go. Now he's working again. the ingenuity of our workers sometimes, amazes and baffles you and frustrates you at the same time when they, go from one field to another when they shouldn't do. But that was very sneaky and clever to kind of sneak through that bit there, and get onto that bit and start ploughing up stuff that I've already cultivated. Okay, it just means we've got a little bit more cultivating to do. We are going to seed this into the night, so that's going to happen off camera because we're pretty much out of time. But I will get this seeded tonight, and if I have got time, I will also roll out the the grass field and do that myself while a worker is seeding over here. It's going to be another late night and probably another early start in the morning. Our farm staff is going to be exhausted in another day or two if we keep this kind of pace up, especially when you consider just what's coming up in autumn as well, with all those fields that need to be done. It's an awful lot of work, but it's going to be worth it. I think at the end of the year we stand to make a huge amount of money if we just have another look at our field selection. You can see here we've got these 3 fields of soybean here. That in itself is a lot, but when we add field 50 into the mix as well, that is a massive potential amount of money just on those fields. I don't even know how much we could potentially get off those fields, but we're talking an awful lot. We've got 2 cornfields here, we've got 2 big barley fields here, 2 good-sized wheat fields, 2 very good-sized canola fields as well, and also we've got fields 5 and 6 right at the top of the map for chaffing as well. We stand to make a lot of money, but it's a lot of hard work to get all of that sort of ready and sellable. So yeah, tough times ahead, a lot of work involved, but it's going to be epic, I think, at the end of year when we start selling off some of our grain. So I'm going to go ahead and call it an episode here. As I say, we'll do some seeding off camera and possibly do some rolling of our grass field 44 as well. We're going to try and attack field 24 tomorrow and start making some silage with that grass using our new Rostral Mash headers. Depends on what time our trailer turns up, because we're going to need that. And we'll also probably end up having to do a few spray jobs throughout the day as well. Everything else will be planted and cultivated and so on and so forth. So it's just kind of tending our crops and working our grass stuff now. So I will see you back on the farm again tomorrow. And don't forget, you can also check out some of my other stuff as well. So I've got mass transit running for City Skylines at the moment. We've also still got Jurassic World running as well. Please do feel free to check those out and have a little bit something other than Farming Simulator popping up there. I am going to try and continue to do some periodic live streamings, and we've got some new games coming soon as well through September. Some more new games will be popping up on the channel, so do keep your eyes peeled for that. But as for me, that's it for now. I am Jim Bob. I'll be back with another episode of Lone Oak very soon.